Good afternoon and welcome to SnapTech IT's webinar for the month of July 2026. My name is Ted Hulsey. I'm Chief Revenue Officer with SnapTech IT and your host for today's event. Thanks for joining in for the live session. This webinar will be recorded and circulated to all registrants, and you can always visit us on our YouTube channel for all of our content on demand. Today's topic is Claude for Business. I'm joined today by my marketing manager, Nathan Caldwell. Nathan, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks for having me, Ted.
All right, so exciting topic today. We've been banging on Claude a lot the past couple months and are excited to share some of our firsthand experiences. Let's get into it. Thanks for joining the live session. Please ask questions as we go along. When Nathan and I are doing live demos, it's really impossible for us to manage the Q&A log, but when I'm demoing, he's looking at the log, and when he's demoing, I'll be looking at the log. So if you've got questions, burning questions, please get them into the log, and we'll try to address them as we go through. One thing we always do at the top of our webinars is just spend 1 to 2 minutes letting everybody know who we are. SnapTech IT is a cybersecurity-first IT service provider with operations in Atlanta, Georgia, Phoenix, Arizona, and the San Francisco Bay Area. When clients come to us, they usually bring technology challenges. Our philosophy, of course, is that technology should be solving problems in your business, not creating them. But when clients come to us, there's a range of different challenges people are seeing. They might be being disappointed by their current IT service provider. They might have been underinvesting in IT and cybersecurity, and their whole overall operation feels long in the tooth and is not performing well. Or people could be losing sleep over the level of their cybersecurity posture. What we do with new clients is we put in place our proven process. All of our clients have a technology plan, a technology roadmap, a predictable IT budget, so they know where they're going on a strategic level. And then on a tactical level, we implement all of our best practices. We implement cybersecurity tooling. We help raise the bar on people's cybersecurity posture, which enables our clients to work anywhere securely, no matter how their organization is structured. And things do break in technology. We try to prevent that through superior configuration and deployment, but stuff will break, and users will need support, and we provide fast and friendly support to all of our clients. And then ultimately, our goal is to make sure that your team can stay focused on your business and that you have the peace of mind that you're working with a partner who's really helping you on the cybersecurity front. We serve clients in 2 different ways. If you are a smaller organization and you're outsourcing everything and there's nobody on your team that has IT on their badge, that's what we call fully managed IT. If you're a larger organization and you maybe have an IT director, an IT manager, or a whole IT team, and you're just looking for more support, we come alongside larger organizations and put together what we call co-managed IT, where we put together a customized outsourcing strategy for your organization. When clients get started with us, we usually start out with either a cybersecurity risk assessment or one of our AI jumpstart programs where we help organizations accelerate their AI journey. So if you're considering making a change in your IT service provider approach, we would love to have a chat with you about how to get started. Okay, that's it on the infomercial. The rest of today is just content educating you about Anthropic's Claude solution. This will have a lot of demos, so this will be demo intensive. Here's what we're going to look at. So we're first going to just give you an overview of Claude. It can be confusing. Nathan and I have been doing webinars on AI and programming and workshops and training content for a couple of years now. And we ourselves have to invest a lot of time just to keep up with the pace of innovation, the literal tidal wave of features and new capabilities that are coming out every day from Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, et cetera. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
our job here.
It's enough, Ted, to make you want to say, I.
Well,
there's a free dad joke for everyone. Okay?
There we go. Our goal is to demystify this, to try to spare you having to listen to 3 or 4 hours of YouTube videos and get this distilled down into 30 or 45 minutes of content that gives you the most important things you need to know as a business leader, especially when it comes to evaluating different technology choices for your business. So we're going to make sure we give a good overview of Claude, overview the pricing. We're going to talk about, I'm going to start out and talk about some of the deep integration points between Claude and the Microsoft platform. And then I'm going to give you some demos of that. And then I'm going to turn it over to Nathan, who's going to talk about co-work, deep thinking, some more powerful capabilities in Claude, some of the design capabilities of Claude, and then we will address your questions as we go or at the end. So please keep them coming. All right.
And
So
then
with
just
that,
for people to
yeah.
also understand, the better AI gets, the longer it takes to produce results, and it goes into thinking mode. And a lot of these AI tools will say, hey, I'm working on it. You can go do something else. Come back and check on me. So the way we are doing our demos today, just so everybody is aware, we aren't doing smoke and mirrors, but what we're going to do is cut out the wait time. So we will show you how to do this. We'll run you step by step of where you go, what you would do, what you would prompt. And then we're going to skip over the waiting part and show you some results because we've already run all of these before we built these things. And so we'll show you the end result of some of what you could expect. But keep in mind, hey, mileage may vary. You could prompt it one time, asking for something very specific, and it gives you just what you want. And then another time, like in a live demo, you ask for something and it doesn't do it the way that you wanted it to. So anyway, just a quick heads up on how we're going to handle it today.
All right. Very helpful, Nathan. Good preliminary comments on that. Okay. Let's just take a look, trying to get our heads around Anthropic's Claude. So, you know, if you, at some very high level, you can think about Anthropic and OpenAI as two, you know, massive competitors. They have very similar, like, lineage, if you will. A lot of the people who started Anthropic had left OpenAI. What I will say is that you just, at a very high level, Anthropic has very much gone after the business and enterprise markets more aggressively from the start than OpenAI. OpenAI and ChatGPT, on the other hand, you know, really has a massive consumer adoption of ChatGPT, and I would say for a lot of just general users, Claude maybe doesn't have the same name recognition, or it's not really yet a household name to a lot of people. So, but they're very different, I would say, in just the overall breadth of the capabilities in the solutions and the utility for a business user. So let's look at the work modes. Of course, with Claude, you can do chat. So chat is, you know, like the starting point of all AI solutions. Really is the chat experience. Claude also has something called co-work, and this is the actual desktop application that runs on your Windows machine or your Mac. Projects is a way to organize content and constrain the context of what you're working on so that you get a superior output. And then Claude Code is Claude's AI coding tool. We're not going to really address Claude Code today. It's really kind of beyond the scope of a lot of our users to a large degree. But those are kind of like the different kind of like work modes and then you have the different models. And really, you know, this gets kind of esoteric, but you can kind of summarize it like Haiku is the fastest model. You know, Sonnet is the kind of the everyday workhorse. And then Opus is like the most powerful model that's going to be used in kind of deep thinking exercises or really complex work you're having the tool do.
And then just an additional comment there, Ted. So you will notice that with all AI tools, they are releasing stuff so fast. And so even though you're showing these model names today, like next week, new ones could come out. For example, hey, guess what's out? Fable 5. That's another model that some people can access right now, but right now also it does require usage credits, whereas these other ones do not. And so just to keep that in mind, when you're wondering, well, which model should I use? Ted already outlined, if you want it fast or if you want it thinking more, Fable 5 is one where you could really make it think, but only if you're willing to use up some of your credits for it.
Yeah, great comment on the model topic. Some unique lingo around Claude in addition. So artifacts. So an artifact is what actually gets produced after you do a prompt. And the important thing about an artifact is it can be an image, it can be a diagram, it can be a document, it can be a Word document, it can be a text file. So artifacts can come in all different shapes and sizes, but that's the Claude lingo for the output. Skills is when you actually get to starting to work in co-work and you start building kind of agentic workflows where you have repetitive tasks that you want Claude co-work to go perform. You design those as a skill and you add a skill to your account. And then prompt templates, of course, is creating a template around a prompt, something you might do on a repeated basis, and you want to have it in a templated format. And then integrations. The power of AI is not because it's powerful because it's plugged into the large language models and it's plugged into the knowledge of the web, but it's equally powerful when you can plug the AI tool into your own content, your own workflows, your own business context. And that's where the integrations come in handy. You can there's a plugin for Chrome, which comes in handy for using it for kind of repetitive tasks that might need to be done inside of a web browser. I'm going to really spend a lot of time on how Claude is integrated with the Microsoft 365 platform. Connectors, you can connect Claude to all of the different SaaS applications you may use. And then plugins, there's like pre-built skill packs around different vertical industries like law and marketing and that sort of thing. And then, the context system this is how you feed your data into the tool. And then in terms of licensing, I'm going to address those quickly on the next couple slides. So you as an individual, I think the key thing is we have a business only audience. So you're all working in companies. Do not use free AI tools. Free AI tools do not protect your data and your privacy. You are the product when you're using a free tool, not the other way around. So pay for a tool. If you want to go do kind of the prosumer or individual business user approach, you can sign up for one of these individual plans. And basically, you just get more power the more money you pay is the simple theme. Now, most organizations, if you're thinking about making a decision for 5, 10, 50 people, you're trying to outfit like the leadership team or all the managers at a small and medium-sized business company, you're probably going to want to look at the team solution, which is $25 per user per month. That's what the bulk of the work Nathan and I are doing today is we are licensed to Claude Team, and we have that deployed internally at Snaptech. And then, of course, you have these higher and more powerful packages as well. And then at the enterprise level, all pricing is custom, but there's also like certain add-on packs that get you certain compliance and data governance features and capabilities. So that's it on licensing. I'm just looking at the clock and noticing we're already behind schedule. So what I want to do is you to think about Claude in layers of functionality. And at the first level, like if you've played with ChatGPT or maybe you've played with the free version of Copilot inside your Microsoft environment, a lot of this stuff is very familiar to you. A chat interface with enhanced by web search. Your artifacts are the outputs of what you do. A big important capability where I think Claude really shines is the ability to either program the memory and style of how the AI operates. You can feed it your existing, like a whole body of writing that you have, that's your own writing, to teach the tool on how to really have your voice. But also as you work, it builds memory and builds additional context and knowledge about how you work and your preferences and that sort of thing. And then projects, of course, you are discrete projects you might be working on in your business where you normally are going to be wanting to load up a subset of content that is just relevant just for that project. So that's level one. Level two is, okay, well, now I want to connect Claude to my email. So maybe I've got a Google Drive repository of files I want to be able to be working on, or maybe you actually have a business Gmail account you want to connect to. Skills get you into more automation tasks. Deep thinking and research modes are all about turning Claude loose on really deep research projects that might take 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour, or even an hour or two, which is all possible when you're using these more highly powered models and tooling. And then at the top level, you could think about it where you're going to, in the case of co-work, this is really where you really want to start leveraging AI to automate different functions, take different workflows that you currently have in your work life, and program Claude to actually do the work for you on an automated basis. Claude Code is around a coding assistant, and then computer use is, again, leveraging Claude to do routine tasks or to automate certain functions. So think about it in layers, and it's a very powerful product and complex, but think about how you can, stepwise crawl, walk, run to getting the maximum functionality out of the solution. Now, Nathan and I have spent a lot of time talking about Microsoft Copilot. I think one of the amazing things that Microsoft has done with Copilot is to take ChatGPT was the first model they integrated, but to really take the applications we're already working in a lot and integrate AI functionality into it. And that's been a really the most impressive thing about Microsoft Copilot. The really cool thing about Claude is their integrations with the Microsoft stack are maybe better than Microsoft's. And so that's what we're going to look at today. Of course, you can take Claude and you can connect it to things like your SharePoint, OneDrive, and your Outlook inbox. But really what we're going to look at, I'm going to show you some detailed examples of how to actually use Claude as a plugin inside the traditional Office suite. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and show how Claude can actually behave inside of those. And then really interesting thing is you can just, if you flip it around, and if you're either using Copilot today or really heavily invested in the Microsoft stack, the interesting thing is now with Copilot, you can actually use Anthropic's different models inside Copilot in your Microsoft environment. So that's not something we're going to show today, but it's something to call out that Microsoft is very much positioning Copilot as this like unifier of different models that's deeply integrated with your work. And it just so happens that Anthropic's various models are now available inside of Copilot. So, but that's not something, the thing in the middle is not something we're going to talk about today, but we are going to look at the other two topics. So with that, it's now time to go to the demos. Nathan, any questions, or do you have any comments maybe on what we've talked about thus far?
No questions from our audience yet. I don't have any additional comments right now. So
okay, great.
I'm excited to show people what's going on with Claude. There's a lot of buzz around Claude too. And so it's great to see it in action.
Yeah, and in the interest of time, Nathan, I kind of toyed with the idea of trying to show this, Oh, well, let me show like 3 different demos. I might only show 1 or 2, depending on how we're doing
and
on
just
the clock.
a quick comment for our audience who's joined in. If you do have a question, please type it in the Q&A box, and then we'll make sure that we address those.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm going to show everybody, just to start things off, is we're going to be using an assessment example. So one of the things that we do with all of our prospective clients is we do a cybersecurity risk assessment for every new potential client. And this is a fairly involved process. It usually takes 2 to 3 weeks to complete. And one of the things that for organizations that we work with where they've maybe never done this before, we like to show an example of what a cybersecurity assessment is all about. And we have this anonymized. So this is a real cybersecurity assessment. And you can see it's, 31 pages long, and but it's been completely anonymized. So it's real data about the different risk factors that this client has, but it's been completely anonymized. Any client identifiable information has been redacted from the document. And this is the document I'm going to use to show how you can work with Claude inside of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So that's like the grist for the mill. So this is like the actual data of our work. And so what I want to show here is when you're in Word, so here I am in Microsoft Word, and what you'll notice here is we've installed the Claude plugin here on the upper, it's sitting here on the taskbar. And so what you can do is you can basically create content in Word while using Claude as your assistant. And you can have it work on sections of a document. You can have it take a long document and work on a certain pages or sections of the document, or you can have it create raw content for you. And what we're going to do here is one of the struggles we often have with our risk assessments is it's 31 pages long. We call it an executive summary, but it's not an executive summary. We usually want like a one-pager. We usually want like a 1 to 2 page document, which is the exec summary to the exec summary. And so what I often use AI tooling for is I'll take our more extensive reports and I'll try to boil things down to the most important things. And so the way you would do that is I'm just going to go over here to my prompt library to be quick about it. And I'm just going to copy this. And I'm going to go over to this window here, the Claude plugin window. And I'm going to say, analyze this anonymous risk assessment and use the term anonymous client to refer to the client in question. Take this risk assessment report and condense it to a short executive summary. So that's my prompt. And then I'm going to click on add files. So here I'm giving the tool context. And now I'm going to go grab the actual assessment document, upload it here, and attach it. And then, so I've now taken the report, I've given the prompt, and now I want, Claude to basically condense this down into a actionable, very short document. And so I'm just gonna, instead of running this, I'm gonna just go in here and just look at our previous work we did. So I ran this, I think, either yesterday or this morning, but you see that it says I'm going to go ahead and read the report. I've read all 31 pages. Here are my main findings, and then it'll go and then create the actual document for you. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go and open up. Let's actually see. Just see here where I'm just trying to find. Here we go. Let's see here. I'm going to go over here to open it, and I'm going to browse to it. And go here. Ted's demos, and I'm just going to open up what it produced. And so here's what it produced. Is it took this 31-page document and it boiled it down into a 2.5-page executive summary. It took the most important cybersecurity findings and bulletized them in a nice list. It gave me a tabular summary of, some of the most important findings that are mapped against the cybersecurity framework we're doing, and then it abstracted out the projects that we recommend in it, and then gives an overall anyway. This is killer. This is something we do every day. This is something we in our work we're always trying to strike a balance between information overkill with a client and thoroughness on the other hand. And so this is a cool way. Admittedly, like what I just showed you, you can also do with Copilot, but Claude really stands out because this is not something you can do with OpenAI and ChatGPT. Like having this plugin that can actually work inside the Word document is really powerful. Okay, now similar sort of thing in Excel. So again, we're here in Excel. You see the Claude plugin up here. Similar sort of capability. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy a prompt and I'm going to drop it in here. And again, I'm going to use that same report as kind of like the thing I'm going to want abstracted. So I'm going to say, analyze this risk assessment, call this client, anonymous client, create a list of the 10 most important risks identified, then add another column to the with the potential business impact if the risk is not mitigated, and then add a third column with a hypothetical business cost if a security incident occurred. Okay, so again, what I would do is I'd go in and attach the actual report. And what I want to show you here, and again, we've run this already, and Claude, built a Excel spreadsheet table. And let me just go ahead and show you what that looks like. Presentation. Okay. And within, it takes a couple minutes. But Claude was able to, inside Excel, take this 31-page report and then prioritize a list of the 10 most important risks, kind of condense and pull the most important information from it, and then give a hypothetical potential, business incident potential cost that could occur to an organization if they fell prey to a cybersecurity attack. So we could have shown it pouring over a large data set, 3 years of sales figures, and asked it to turn it into like a sales performance dashboard. And we've shown similar sorts of things with Copilot just a couple of weeks back in another demo. But the ability for Claude to work right inside the Office suite is really a killer capability and makes the solution extremely powerful. And so with that, I think, Nathan, I'm going to turn it over to you because we have a lot of other ground to cover.
Great.
But the demo I'm not showing you is PowerPoint. So PowerPoint, you can leverage the Claude plugin. You can have it create. When I did a test of the demo with the same sort of document, I had it create like a 10-page PowerPoint presentation, which was the PowerPoint version of that report, which again is something that every day you find yourself doing in these sort of like data intensive tasks. And there's probably great utility for most of the business leaders here on the call. So let me turn it over to you, Nathan, and different sets of demos, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so what I'm going to demo first off is Claude Cowork. And now I'm not going to show you, of course, we can't show you everything all about this, but we want to show you a couple of ways to engage with these different demos and also why you would use them or when you would use them. I'm sure you've heard of the term Claude Cowork, and everybody throws it around as if all you have to do is say, hey, get Claude Cowork to do that. You could fire the person who works next to you tomorrow and just get Claude Cowork to do it all. And really, that is not how it works. But what I am going to show you is a great use case for something that I believe we all need help with. Now, if you don't need help with this, I would love for you to chime in into the chat here on the webinar and say, only you, Nathan. But here's what I'm dealing with. Now, if you're like me, you take screenshots and then your desktop or your computer is littered with file after file after file that just has screenshot in the title. And so I'm going to just go ahead and on my computer, I'm going to search for any file that has screenshot in the title. And just so I can show you how wild and fun everything is on my desktop. So we'll go in here and we will search for screenshot. And I don't know why it's not. Well, this is great. But anyway, okay. We want to search for screenshot. And what you're going to see is, well, it's not coming up now. It's coming up as images and everything. Okay, here we go. So you can see that down here, tons and tons of files are named just screenshot, and then they have dates, and they're all different types of images. Like some are pictures, some you can see have people in them, some are PowerPoint slides, all that different stuff. And so what I would do then is just grab all of those screenshot files and drop them into a folder. And so I already created that folder. It's called Screenshots Untitled. And you can see that in this folder, and you can see the file naming convention as well. Like if I were to clean this up, I'd have to open up each one, see what's in there, pick what I'm going to call it, all that sort of stuff, organize the files and everything. Or I can get Claude Cowork to do it for me. And so here's what you can do. If you pull up new, and this has to be with the desktop version of Claude. So you want to download the desktop version, and then right here where it allows you to choose between chat or Cowork after you have selected new, you want to choose Cowork, and then you can drop this file in with all of the unnamed screenshots, and I can click allow it to have access. And then what I'm going to do is take my prompt. My prompt is very, very just so easy. It's plain language, but it covers what I need it to do. And so here's my prompt. Reorganize all of my photos and screenshots into neatly labeled folders, sorted by date, topic, and content. Rename each file based on what's actually in the image. So now I'm going to go ahead and I won't actually hit start task because I don't want to use up computer memory right now while I'm demoing this for you, but just allow me to show you what would happen. So it would work for a few minutes, but then this would be the result. So I have my folder here. I'm going to open it up and show you what happened. So if you take a look at this folder here, it already organized all folders and gave them all kinds of great names. And so if I go in, it's taken apart some of my amusement park industry content. As Ted knows, and maybe some of you already know, I go and speak at theme parks sometimes on the topic of leading with kindness and speak to a lot of their guest service teams and frontline workers and leadership teams. And so there's a bunch of files in there. Then there's also office and meeting room bookings. Ted and I have done a ton of in-person events, organizing things for SnapTech IT. And then software and IT research. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up one of these. There's even personal travel documents. I won't show you that because there might be sensitive information in that. But let's go ahead and jump into this software and IT tools research. And you can see that it's dated, and then it describes what's going in to each of those files. Also here, if we go to webinars and AI presentations, if I click into that, it has the date, and then it shows some different naming conventions for all of those files. And so immediately you get to, just in a few minutes, a reorganized folder. You get all your files named and you get all those folders built. Now, Ted, that took a couple of minutes when I let Claude Cowork do it for me. How long do you think it would take me to do it myself?
I mean, it would take hours. I mean, it's like, and I mean, I think it's, and I think what I want everyone to kind of think of is think of all the different use cases. These could be receipts. This could be a person in an accounting function. These could be invoices. You know, you could be wanting to do like an analysis on, you know, a previous vendor relationship, and maybe, you know, you guys didn't do a good job of like logging the expenses, or you can't extract them from the P&L, but you want to do an analysis on that vendor, and all you have is a big pile of PDF files, a big pile of PDF invoices from a particular vendor, and you want to analyze your average cost. You could just like, there's all these different use cases, and Nathan is just showing one here, which is if you're in a marketing function, you're often taking a lot of screenshots, and you know the applications themselves come up with these very unhandy default usernames, which make them fairly useless 6 months later after you haven't you know, you can't remember what they were, and it's either very laborious, or you could use a tool like this to blast through the work and get yourself organized.
Yeah, and think about too, like when it comes to screenshots, most of the time we're doing it because we need it for something or we want to remember something. But then to have it in a boatload of other files just named screenshot, we're never going to remember where it is, how to find it. There's no searching for it because you aren't like, oh man, where is that Claude AI infographic that I screenshotted from LinkedIn? That, oh, where can I find that? And it's just, oh, I remember. It was November 12th, 2025 when I screenshotted that. So I'll just look up that date. Like, it just doesn't happen. So,
and I can't resist going to the Q&A log and noting that Sina says, LOL, I just performed the same function analyzing my SnapTech invoices, where the money is going, standard billing projects. It would have taken me hours to do it. So there you have it, folks.
There we go.
From the trenches of folks using this sorts of technology every day to boost their productivity. And look at, I mean, and this is the point. AI is not going to put anybody out of work. It's going to just allow us to save countless hours to automate and turbocharge our way through the mundane work we have to do so that we can focus on the really important, valuable parts of our job.
Absolutely.
But Sina, thanks for the real life use case.
Okay, so if you have been around SnapTech IT or you've gotten emails from me, and I invite you to many different webinars that we put on. We've been putting on webinars 2 a month, in fact. And for every webinar, I have to update our PowerPoint deck to be specific for the topic at hand, of course. And so what I end up doing is I have to go in and edit every slide. Well, not anymore with Claude. And what I'm showing you is where I've already prompted this. But what I want to highlight right here is I took last month's webinar deck, webinar PowerPoint, I dropped it into Claude, and all I said was update this PowerPoint deck to be about Claude AI for business. So then it thought for a while and it ran it and it allowed me to download it. So here's what we're going to do for this demo. Obviously, we don't want to sit and just watch Claude, wait for it to put something out there. So I'm going to show you the before and after. So allow me to open up some of my PowerPoint presentations here and show you. And so this was last month's webinar. You can see the title slide, What's New with Gemini? It happened to be me and Ted last month as well. You know, you saw these intro slides, but then take a look at this. This is Gemini and our agenda for Gemini. There's a bunch of slides in here. This is a screenshot of Google Workspace. Also, this is a screenshot. And the reason why I'm highlighting this to you is that This is a complex PowerPoint deck. It's not just text and slides where you would think, okay, Claude will read it all. Claude has to go in, and on this slide, it has to read this image and decipher all of the text and come away with an understanding of what's on this slide and what to build. Same with this one. This is a screenshot of Gemini's pricing. And so I'll jump out of that and I will show you the Claude output. And so right away, it changed the title slide, and I want to kind of put it side by side if I can to give you guys a bit of a better visual here. So slide by slide, side by side, slide by slide. But we get the title slide. That's good. It didn't do anything to me and Ted. It didn't need to do anything to our about snap text slides. But then when we get to the agenda, like it jumped in and it gave a different image for Claude. It changed every bullet point about Claude. Also, look at this cool overview it gave. Meet Claude. And it describes the Claude app, Claude Cowork, connectors, Claude Code. It also created this slide from scratch. Claude plans, individuals, free, pro, max 20. It describes teams in enterprise. It goes into the Claude models and when to use them. And so anyway, I just wanted to highlight this because that wasn't where, like, we didn't just take this and then present it to you today. We went back, we made some tweaks, we made some changes, we put additional stuff in. But as far as going from having to take last month's webinar and update it slide by slide, type in the new title, go grab a logo, bring the logo in, all that sort of stuff. Like this went from 0 to 75% of the way done in just a matter of moments. And it even gave me the message, you can go away while I work on this. And so instead of me being hands down, eyes down on the screen, working through the PowerPoint changes, I let Claude do the draft for me. Ted, you want to react to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I've said for a long time, like one of the most, I've been a huge fan for a long time of what Microsoft has done with PowerPoint and Copilot. And the reality is Claude Anthropic has completely caught up. All of the cool and amazing things you can do in PowerPoint with Copilot, you can do with Claude. And Claude is even a little bit more flexible, it seems like to me. But the reality is, for those of us who doesn't use PowerPoint presentations in their work life?
Yeah.
I mean, the ability to go from, instead of like a cold start to like 80% done in just a couple minutes is so powerful, such a huge time saver. In most cases, you always need to go in and do a lot of fine detailed work, subtle things that it just didn't get quite right, directions it maybe went with a slide or two that really is not what you intended. But that ability to start out at the 80% spot rather than at the 0% spot if you're starting from scratch on something new, or even if you're using a template from a prior event. Maybe you're okay, but you're only like maybe 20% there. to be able to have the AI tool get you to 80% out of the chute is pretty darn helpful.
Well, and how many times are we doing versioning of a presentation where you're using a previous presentation because it's the most up to date, it's the most recent, you like the design, all that sort of stuff, but you just need to update the names. Like how many times are you, and I'm speaking to the audience, like how many times do you go before a prospect or a client where you're like using the same template, but you need to make sure all the names are changed to protect the innocent and not embarrass yourself. And if you look at this, like the last thing that Claude said to me was 2 things to double check. The closing register now still promotes the July 30th webinar. If this deck is for that same webinar, you'll want to swap in your next event's details and QR code. Like, it's giving me the heads up of what it's catching still needs to be changed. And so it's a it's really powerful at doing this. I like it a lot. I'm going to be using it quite frequently from now on. All right, so next demo I want to show is how to go from zero and use Claude, kind of like Claude in the middle. So you start with people, you bring Claude in to get a bunch of the work done, but then you finish with people, with people who have real talent and an eye for design, so that you can fix things and get them better. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to talk about creating, we created a white paper called the Guide to IT Services. And what I went to Claude to do was I went and did Teams interviews with 3 of our recent clients, and I had a dozen questions to ask them. And I wanted it to be no holds barred, like, tell us about your IT buying experience. What was missing from it? What could have been better about your experience? And so I took their interviews, and then I took an already published SnapTech IT document and I plugged it into Claude, and then it created a first version of this. And so I want to show you what it came up with. And so let's see, here we go. So this is what it came up with. And, you know, it's pretty good. They definitely went through all the interviews. It caught a lot of great things. But then you can see that there's some artifacts here, some stuff going on that we don't quite like. It's not exactly in the style that we want. There's like a big blank space here. The layout is a little bit not what we want. We maybe want 2 columns of text and that sort of stuff. But look at this. I mean, it does get you from 0 to quite a ways down the road for designing this. Well, then I downloaded that. And what I did was, and I'll show you right here, I downloaded it and then grabbed some more files, some more supporting documents that I wanted to plug in. So I took that first buyer's guide that it created. I created a new chat with Claude and loaded it. I loaded a couple more examples of things that we've already built at SnapTech. And then I also loaded in our branding guide. And from there, I also gave it some very specific changes. And so here is my prompt where I said, I need your help editing the attached document. This is the attached document. I need design improvements overall to make it look better. Here are some good examples. A case study with another client, a different white paper that's great. And I attached our brand guidelines. And then I gave some specific things we did want it to fix. Format it to look like our white paper and case studies. And other formatting adjustments, I want wider margins and convert 1 column to a 2-column layout and fix the checklist section to be formatted like a checklist. So I gave it some additional learning. I also gave it some specific instructions, and then it did pump out a much better document. And then here's where it gets better. We take that document after having gone a couple of rounds with Claude in just a day or 2, and we take that to a designer on Fiverr and say, can you now publish this and clean it up totally? And we give them our branding guideline, and we give them a couple of the examples of stuff we have already published that we do like. And let me tell you what, the number of days that I was getting quoted to go from scratch to build this with a Fiverr designer down to just saying, hey, now tweak this one and be kind of our final editor, our final designer on this. It went down from like a 2-week timeline to get it back from a designer down to over a weekend. Just over a weekend. And also the price was only 25% of what they were going to initially charge us. And so by just doing a couple of rounds of edit, putting Claude in the middle, having real person on the front end, Claude in the middle, real people on the final part, then you shrink that timeline down to just a couple of days of working in Claude, 2 or 3 days with a designer, and then you have the final output. And then, Ted, remember this, we didn't have any back and forth with the designer. Whereas normally when we do that, it's like, okay, I got to get them the round of edits. Oh, they missed this piece, and now we need more rounds of edits. And it just really cleans up the process.
It's one of the most compelling. I mean, I think it's one of the use cases that's like just shows the radical cost savings of this technology. So you're paying for, we're paying $25 for a seat of Claude. And when just 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, call it, if we needed to have a professional white paper created where we had already kind of done the writing ourselves and we're handing it, that would cost like $400 to have a Fiverr designer produce that. And, it's an offshore resource. I mean, you're leveraging a global workforce. There's somebody who works where it's a lot more affordable to live, and they charge a lot less for graphic design than somebody just down the street here in the United States. So $400 5 years ago was a bargain for graphic design. But now what Nathan just showed is that we are able to take the graphic design cost from $400 down to $100 and get it turned around over a weekend, and avoid all of those kind of messy early drafting cycles you would have even when you're using like a third-party graphic design person as your graphic designer. So faster, cheaper, better, done in a weekend, and I mean, if anybody's struggling with whether you want to pay for this technology for your employees, I mean, if anybody is, if they're a high value employee doing creative work or complex work or knowledge worker stuff, this technology is just lights out productivity enhancer. So anyway, back to you, Nathan.
All right, so for my last demo, we mentioned artifacts. So artifacts are when you want to build something that's going to stay within Claude that you can keep going to as a very complex tool that you want to engage with over and over, and you want it to understand a very complex system, a list of tasks you want it to run over and over. And so what I'm going to show you is I went ahead and began building an artifact. Now, the reason why I say began building is because what I am trying to do is a very complex process. And so there's going to be some more testing that I'm going to do before I make it live. And also there's going to be tweaks. But this is very, 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 very helpful if you are trying to document a process and then bring it to life in a more interactive checklist or tracking method. If you're doing like project management, if you're trying to work with teams where you are remote, and so you aren't always in the office chatting with one another and giving updates, it's helpful to have a single tool where everybody is giving their updates. So allow me to show you the initial document that I had built. And so we have a whole bunch of marketing tasks that we follow, tasks that we have before we do a webinar, tasks that we do after a webinar. We even put timelines of when we want those things to be done. They're all in a bunch of different software, and we're reaching out to different people to get it done. And so it's very complex, and it requires a lot of self-discipline and focus if you're going to go off of this checklist and make sure that you get everything done. Because if you're just going off an Excel spreadsheet like this is, where it just shows you everything that needs to get done, you're kind of keeping like mental track of, okay, what did I get done? What's next? All that sort of stuff. And so what I did was I took that checklist and I dropped it. I went to build a new artifact here in Claude. And so let me show this to you. And so I'm going to click in, and what it's going to do right now is show the built tool on the right, but the left is where I kept talking to it to say, okay, now change this. Now I need this. Now I need that. And the reason why I'm not going to prompt it for you is because this is an ongoing conversation between me and Claude. It's like me sitting down with a designer to create a whole custom software item that is going to help us be more efficient and even automate a bunch of steps in our webinar process. And so one of the things I did, I loaded it in there, and then I wanted to say, hey, I want to check off all of these things as we build it. And so each month we can come in and we can copy a new one. We can blank out all of the answers from the previous month, and then we can start loading them in. And so you can see that I would load in Ted. I would have his email address there. I'd put in a unique link for him to join the webinar. I'd have my name as the co-host, my email as the co-host email, and a unique link. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this is as soon as I fill this all in and we identify who the host and co-host is, it will send calendar invites because I asked it to. And so if you go through down here, I add due dates to all the checklist items. I also said add logic. So when we enter the webinar date, it auto populates correct due dates for items. And then I asked it, interview me for the logic. Also, if there's a due date and there's a person assigned to it, send them a calendar invite at that time to get it done. And then I gave an example. And so it showed me the logic that it would be there, and it started asking me a bunch of questions of each of these. There was a section I wanted it to delete, so it deleted that. And then let's see, right down here, I said, okay, it's all in Eastern time zone. Pay attention to when the time changes, though, in the spring and the fall. Good catch. That matters. And so it's building this out over and over. And so I didn't want to demo this for you to say, go build this exact thing. What you need to take away from this demo is you can start with a checklist of a whole bunch of items. Then bring it into Claude and tell Claude to interview you on each of those items and start to build something that has automation built in, so that when we complete this and we then share it or we send it out, it will actually pop up a checklist, and it'll say, here are 28 things I'm about to send. Do you approve? So rather than me going from scratch and sending out 28 calendar invites or 28 reminders or 28 messages, it's going to automate that, but I have that man in the middle then approach of approval before I send out. Ted, we are at time, and we want to be able to close out and invite people to our next webinar. So allow me to stop sharing screen, and then you take over with that.
Okay. Let me go ahead and do that. Okay, everybody, thank you guys very much for joining this month's webinar. If you are interested in joining us in August, we're going to be touching on August 13th, we're going to be touching on Microsoft Copilot Cowork. So we were talking about Claude Cowork today. We're going to be looking at the similar sorts of capabilities that you can license from Microsoft. So go ahead, and that would be the QR code on the right. And then if you're interested in talking to any of our AI experts around turbocharging what you're doing in your organization, use the QR code on the left. Thank you very much for joining today's live session. We spent a whole hour on Anthropic's Claude solution for business users. Thanks for joining in for the webinar. Nathan, great job, and we look forward to seeing everybody on a future event.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you later.